Okay. Okay, so we've just kicked off the recording for this session. Welcome everyone who's come along this evening for another one of our Lilydale online seminars, as we've got quite a few of them now under our belt. Thank you everyone for coming along. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start the session and hand over to Bevan. What I'd like you all to do, if you can, is please use the chat feature of Zoom to ask any questions most of the time. We will open up the microphones and so forth towards the end, and if there's any sort of natural breaks to ask Bevan a lot of questions, because it's going to be quite interactive this evening. The idea is that we'll be mostly question driven, so please feel free to ask questions in the chat and anything that kind of strikes your fancy or any tangents you want to go off to. This is a really good opportunity for you to ask Bevan a lot of questions. That's what he wants, so we're going to make it as interactive as we can, but we'll start off with a bit of a presentation. So a little bit of background about Bevan too. He started flying way back as a schoolboy in the 1980s out of Moorabbin. He flew his first solo in Hotel Lima Delta in a Warrior down at Moorabbin Airport, but we'll forgive him for that. He's flown just about every little GA aircraft there is, pretty much, and has spent an awful lot of time flying Papa Mike Papa, which is a Bonanza, which now lives at Lilydale, and somewhat ironically, it's Bevan's fault that I'm involved in aviation, so I blame him for all of my issues with flying planes. He got me started in this business. I taught him to drive, and I wouldn't say he taught me to fly, but certainly he put me in the front seat of the Bonanza and had a pretty good view at how it all worked, and I never looked back from there. So I owe a debt of gratitude to Bevan for getting me through that, getting me started in this grand adventure of flying aeroplanes, which, as we all know, is one of the last great adventures for humans to be involved in. Bevan started off AvPlan about 10 years or so ago now, I think. I'm not going to give you too much history on that, but it grew out of the desire to improve how he was doing his flight planning, and kind of thought the iPad, when it came out, was a great opportunity as a platform to replace the cumbersome mess of paper maps and planning with a much more interactive and powerful system, and with all the benefits of his vision at the time. He's one of the world-leading applications in aviation. I believe it won the Innovation Award back in 2015, which was presented at Avalon a couple of years ago, and we're extremely fortunate to have Bevan here to talk with us tonight. So I'm going to hand over now to Bevan, who's going to take over the screencast, and we'll deal with things. So I'm going to mute everyone for the moment. And then please do use that chat feature to talk to everyone if you could. Just 1 second, I think this has the feature to do that. Yep. And unmute Bevan. Okay. It's all yours, Bevan. Somehow.
Screen, I think, Carl. So hopefully, can you see myself and the iPad? Yes? No? Hopefully, I see everyone now. I don't want to see everyone. So yeah, as you heard from Carl, I'm Bevan. I'm the founder and creator of AvPlan EFB. Started probably 10-ish years ago, went live 9 years ago in August. So we've just gone on 9 years old, and now we're a company that's growing. I think 10 or 12 employees, most of them in Australia, and yeah, we have around over 10,000 sort of monthly users, and it's all going really well. Even in these sort of weird COVID times, we're in Victoria, so we're doing the lockdown dream. So it's been a little while since I had a haircut and stuff, but that's right. I started AvPlan. So my background, I am a CPL instrument rated, and I sort of had the desire to create an electronic version of the iPad that of the kneeboard I used to take flying. So on that kneeboard, I used to have the maps and charts on one side and the flight plan clipped on the other. And in the sort of landscape orientation, as you can see here with the iPad, that's pretty much how AvPlan works. So you've got, the flight plan, which you can do everything in the app with that flight plan visible. So you could look at the maps and DAPs and all that sort of stuff, look at the weather, and you can always have this flight plan visible. It behaves like an electronic version of a flight plan. So it logs your takeoff time and shows your en route times based on your planned time intervals, and then shows you the actuals based on the GPS, which is useful when you're in cruising flight. So it really is, it behaves very differently from a GPS in the air because it has an idea of your intentions, because we get that from your flight plan. You can choose to hide the flight plan with that the button, the sort of hamburger button right up the top here at the top left of the map, and then you can have a full screen map or DAPs or whatever, or you can just have the or you can have both the flight plan and the map visible. The map itself, you can rotate to any which way you want by just twiddling with our fingers, or there's a button there that locks it north up or track up or whatever. Obviously, we use GPS. So, we've got your location there. There's our blue aeroplane where I am at the moment. And we've got a flight plan here going to Wagga via Melbourne. And you can see the flight plan there in red overlaid on the map. The map itself is this infinitely or almost infinitely zoomable chart, which is actually worldwide if we keep zooming out. So you can see worldwide sort of VFR charts with some lightning and weather and SIGMETs and things. And then as we zoom in, it starts showing you different information. So here you can start seeing airspace, active airspace, SIGMETs and airmets. So there's an airmet here in Western Australia, 02. We can tap on these things. They're all interactive, so you can see what they are. And SIGMETs. And as we zoom in, we get different information. The style of the map changes from a WAC chart to a VNC to a VTC. You can see we're highlighting active restricted areas, so you can see one out there over East Sale. We've got some coloured dots on the map. They're METARs, so an indication of what the current weather is. So green being VFR, blue being VFR with the clouds less than about 2,500 feet. Yellow means it's getting into IFR territory with clouds less than 1,000 feet, and red means clouds less than 500. The current wind direction is shown there in the wind barbs, and also the wind velocity is shown by the little ticks at the end of the wind barbs. If we want to view a METAR, for example, we can just tap on the map, and we can see, if I actually tap on the METAR, you can see the METAR there with a nice green dot. Zooming in further, we can see things like runway end extensions, which I've turned on. Many of the things that you can turn on and off are done by the map settings button, which is the two cogs in the top right of the map.
So Bevan, can I just interrupt you for a second?
You can.
There's a bunch of guys here who are pretty new, and they've been doing BAK and PPL study, and they've all been trying to get their heads around how to decipher a METAR. You've got an interesting feature with METARs, haven't you?
Yes, we do. So going back to METARs, another way to view the weather in airport and the METARs is we tap on the point on the map. So I've tapped on Moorabbin. It's showing us all the details about that particular point in our flight plan, which is our origin, on the waypoint details page. So we can see sort of the identifier, the height above sea level, little diagram of the runway layout, METARs and TAFs, NOTAMs. So tapping on the METAR will take us to a decoded version. So we can see the raw text at the top with that little green dot. But if we scroll down, we can see a decoded version of the METAR. There's QNH, density, altitude, and so on. And keep scrolling, and then we show you the, nearby metas as well. Going back up one level, if we scroll down a bit, you can see the TAF from Moorabbin. Again, if we tap on that, we'll see the raw TAF at the top. And then if we scroll down, we can see broken into the various periods, the actual weather as it changes. We show the time that those things are valid, and we're highlighting the current period. You can see it says TAF current. So that's the current time, 3:30 at 12 knots CAV-OK, and then from a particular time. Now we always show time in UTC because we don't know. So if we chose to change it to local time, is what local time do you use? Use the local time that you are, or the local time of the particular place. So if you're looking at, say, the Perth weather, you know, that'll be 2 or 3 hours potentially different. So it's a tricky question. So we need to sort of deal with that. Anyway, so yeah, all the different periods, and you keep scrolling down, you can see the temperatures and QNHs, and we highlight the current, what current period you are. So you can see there in the sort of magenta pink color. And again, scrolling down, you can see nearby TAFs and metas. Back up, we can see NOTAMs. You can see there's 7 NOTAMs from Moorabbin. So they're all, you know, lovely. You'll notice there's a button there that says mark as red. So if we don't want to see a particular NOTAM anymore, so yes, we know that the runways have slightly changed. At Moorabbin, we can tack mark as red, and it collapses down into that single line. And weather cameras, so we can see what the current weather looks like with all different cameras. The weather cameras can be a separate overlay on the map as well. If we keep scrolling down, we can see communications information and the various DAP and Versa pages and so on for a particular location. If we want to look at a particular chart, we can just tap on it with our finger. It opens the next pane, which is terminal. That's where the airport information is. And we can see the particular chart that I was looking for, which was the Moorabbin Versa page. I'll get to that in a minute. So back to the map page, you can see the runway end extensions. They're 5 nautical miles long, and they lead to the end of the whatever runway is marked. If we have the current weather, as you can see at Moorabbin, we'll also highlight what we see as the most interwind runway, being green. So you can see runway 35 right. It's a bit of a northerly wind today. If we keep scrolling in, airports that have an airport diagram, so anything that's a licensed aerodrome in Australia, will have a geo-referenced taxi diagram, and that will actually appear as you keep zooming in on the map. So then, you know, you'll see directly where you are and you can taxi around. So when you zoom into any airport, so if I zoom into Essendon, for example, you'll see the Essendon taxi diagram appear. And down in the bottom right-hand side of the map, you can see a button that says clear, it's in blue. And that's basically how we can choose to remove that chart from the map. There we go. So the map page is pretty awesome. You can overlay weather information. So that's done with that radar looking icon at the top right, the second from the right at the top. If we tap on that, you can see the different overlays, and they're either animated, so changing over a period of time, or static ones. So if we look down the bottom at the static ones, for example, I've got METARs, SIGMETs, lightning, PIREPs, and weather cameras turned on. I'll just turn the weather cameras on. You can see all these little dots. The weather cameras are also color coded based on the METAR, if there's a METAR at that location. So you can see some cameras are green, some are blue, some are black. The black ones mean that there's either no METAR, or the METAR reporting station at that location doesn't give us enough information to give a clear picture of the of the weather. So back to weather. You can see now up the top, there's a bunch of options like the weather radar, infrared satellite, surface pressure, freezing levels, and so on. The weather radar is probably the most interesting and useful one, which shows you an animated loop over the last 60 minutes of rainfall. So we do our best to cache this as you're flying along, so that if you haven't got the radar turned on, you know, we've saved all the information so we can display it if you choose to turn it on and you don't have access at that current time. So it's one of those things as a developer we need to deal with, is your devices come in and out of connectivity when you go flying. So we do our best in the background to keep all this weather and other data up to date as you're flying along. So the app is constantly getting feeds of the METARs and TAFs and NOTAMs and so on as they change, and also the SIGMETs and AirMets and other details. So this is an example of an AirMet. I'll thank the Bureau for issuing one. So this is how a graphical area forecast is amended these days, and they appear like these purple areas on the map. So it's very important that we show these, because that's an active indication that the weather is changing from that's forecast. So it's quite important that we do that. And a couple of other information stuff that we overlay on the map while we're still here is NOTAMs. So we have airspace NOTAMs, as you can see there, restricted areas and so on, but we do temporary restricted areas, which are quite interesting, and other operating areas. So you can see there, there's this yellow band that's going straight up the map there. And that's actually a NOTAM that's not currently current, but will be shortly. So the way we interact with these things, we have a bit of a rule, which is good to remember. So if it's something on the ground, a single tap will display the information, so airports and so on, single tap on the map. If you want anything in the air, a double tap. So if you want to find out about airspace or NOTAMs and so on, double tap. So I've double tapped on the map on that yellow line, and you can see here it's come up with a TRA that says it's a NOTAM. I can tap on that and then scroll down and see what it is. It's about helicopter operations, which will be lights out at certain times of the day. So and military low jet routes and things like that, so will appear depicted in a similar way, which greatly enhances the ability to actually interpret what these things mean. So here's another example. You can see that yellow region on the map. We can double tap with our finger, and we can see here it says NOTAM blah. We can tap on that and see what the NOTAM actually is. It's for C-17 operations below 5,000 feet. So having overflown a similar area while they've been active, I've actually seen a formation of two C-17s flying along in this particular, in a region such as this. So it's good for plane spotting, but in a good way, because you can keep out of their way and don't get hoovered up.
Just a quick question for you. Early on with the weather displays and the radar, there's also a couple of other features there. One I'm quite interested in is the ceilings forecast. How does that work?
So this is from a forecast model showing you cloud ceilings. This is one of our premium features. So it's a forecast every hour for a 24-hour period. So you can see here down the bottom left-hand side of the map, you can see the little symbol and it says 3.4 hours ago. We can also tap on that and it'll show you the legend. So it's basically showing you the ceilings and the potential cloud, the cloud ceilings at a particular time. So if I step forward in time to about now, we'll see how well it matches reality. 24 minutes ago. Oh, most of the cloud's gone. That's a shame. I'll just go to Tasmania. Oh, there we go. Strawn's reporting IFR, and yeah, we basically said that there should be some weather around there. So
does that have any? Does that also show the tops of the clouds?
No, this is the cloud bases, so the heights of the bases. We actually don't have a product that show cloud tops at this point in time. So the best you can do there is look at the infrared satellite and get some idea of cloud tops from there. Yeah, so a couple of other NOTAM features which are interesting to know about are these. You'll see other areas depicted. We're actually anything around airspace and NOTAMs, and these days UAVs is also depicted. So red ones mean that they're active at the moment, so we can tap on that and see what it is. So this is a 6.5 kilo drone. What will be interesting is, this is surfaced to 1,000 feet. So, this isn't just at sort of ground level, it's something that, and it's operating near an aerodrome. So, it's really important these days that these areas are depicted and displayed on your EFB. So, yeah, and then just normal, boring old normal airspace is also shown. So, all these restricted areas, the one here near Townsville, so R751, Townsville High Range, the second one in the list. If I tap on that, it shows you if it's active, and then when it's active and why, if there's a NOTAM. So yeah, lots of information on the map page. Here's another interesting one. Again, yellow means it's going to be active, red means it's currently active. So this is another interesting one I saw the other day, and this is for actually a rocket launch. So again, really important. This might, if you're flying in this area, that you know this, and it's otherwise you're presented with a NOTAM with a lot of lat and long, and where on earth could that be? It'll take forever to try and plot it out. So yeah, we do all the hard stuff for you.
So Bevan, just to break into us a second, Teresa's curious to know how you access the ceiling forecast.
The ceiling forecast is under the radar icon. So ceilings and visibility are a premium feature. So that's, if you haven't got the right subscription level, you may not see it. So it's one of the pro features, I'm sorry. Yeah, some of the extra features, they do cost more, and that's because, we license the data to display it from various different places who charge us, unfortunately, real money. It's a bit of a bugger. So yeah, there's a few things like that. If you ever, I usually will tell you during this, or you can see a breakdown on the website about what's covered by what. So that's the map page. So when you're flying along, you're interacting with the map page a lot. You're referencing the flight plan here on the left-hand side, or at the top, or whatever if you're in landscape, portrait, sorry, orientation. So looking at the tabs at the bottom, we'll skip one to the right and go to the terminal page. This is where all the airport information is. So it's showing you the information about your last selected airport. In my case, it was Moorabbin. To find an airport, there's a couple of really quick ways of doing it. First is we've got our flight plan here on the left-hand side. We can just tap on a particular place in our flight plan. It will then open the terminal page for that location. So if I tap down the bottom here on Wagga, and it opens, as you can see, the terminal page for Wagga. I can see we've got a question around Android. Pretty much most of what I have said so far works exactly the same on Android. We have the same forecast stuff, I believe. The zoom in on the map still works. We've got all the NOTAM overlays, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, pretty much most of what I've said so far is available on Android. So back to the terminal page again, the way we interact is the same on Android versus Apple. So tap on a row in our flight plan here on the left-hand side, opens the terminal page for this location. So I've tapped on Wagga and it's open Wagga. It'll open, the first page is what we call weather and NOTAMs, and that's because it has the weather and NOTAMs. So we've got information about the current leg of our flight plan. And you'll see there's tabs, leg details, comms, MET, NOTAMs, winds, and so on along there, and that's where we've grouped that information. So comms, got, you know, communication information plus the AWIS phone number and so on. You can tap on that and it'll dial a phone number. Next is MET. So we've got the TAFs and METARs for Wagga. Again, in the encoded form at the top with our little green dot, VFR, it's a lovely day, but then scrolling down, we've also got the decoded text as well. And one little hidden feature that these do, you'll notice for the encoded text, we can tap on it with our finger and it'll blow it up in size. So as you can see, you know, I need to use some reading glasses these days. So then it blows up the text so we can read it a bit easier, and then just tap on it to dismiss. Moving right along, we have NOTAMs. So you can see when they're active or not. And again, we've got that mark as red button on the right-hand side. Moving right along, winds aloft, shows you the winds, and then any head or tailwind component in that particular leg, in the brackets down the right-hand side. We have satellite image of the airport, RAIM information, and so on. Now to get to the ERSA and DAT pages, we swipe with our finger. So the first page has the taxi diagram for the airport, which is also geo-referenced. You can see our flight plan there depicted as well, the little red lines. ERSA page, runway distance supplement, and then all the instrument approaches. These instrument approaches are all geo-referenced. Again, if you have the Pro feature, you'll see that. And you also, with the Pro feature, have the ability to overlay these on the map. So there's a pencil squiggle button, second from the right at the top. And that's where we can start annotating, so we can start writing and drawing on the plates. Or you can notice there's an option that says show chart on map. If we tap on show chart on map, it opens the map page and overlays the approach plate on the map. So there we go. So there we can see the most into-wind runway is runway 30 at Wagga this evening. So it doesn't necessarily mean that's the best runway. Yes, so when I talk about Pro, I mean Standard Plus or Premium subscription, that's correct. We're going to be doing a bit of effort to clarify that in the next sort of wee while, because things have evolved over time in the last 9 years, and I think it's time we look back and actually level set and make sure the terminology we use is consistent. So, you know, I apologize for the confusion because I'm pretty much the one that's caused it. So back to the terminal page, as I said, you can annotate it and so on. Another way of finding the information you need is the book icon at the top right. So you can see in the top right on the terminal page, something that looks like a book. So you can see, then tap on that, you can see all the airports on the left-hand side, and then the plates for the particular location here at Wagga on the right-hand side, okay? And then we can just tap on one to display it. If we want to find a particular airport, we can just type it in. I've typed in Lilydale, and you can see on the right-hand side where the NOTAMs, FAC, all the country airstrip guide, which is another option that you can purchase, which puts diagrams like this for a bunch of ALAs, about 2,500 in your EFB. So that has, you know, things like the runway layouts and so on, and then who to contact, phone numbers, that kind of stuff. And that's another option that you can purchase on our website. So that comes from Flydace, which is a Queensland-based company, and it's pretty much a no margin product that we add in. So yes, so that's briefly the terminal page. The next down the bottom here is weather. So this is where we can see the graphical area forecast in an interactive fashion. So you can see our flight plan there in red and all the sort of areas depicted there in different colors. We can tap on that and actually see what they are and read the particular forecast items that we want to see. You can see the nature charts. We can see satellite imagery. This is really useful, especially in the daytime. At nighttime, that's where it's night at the moment. See an animation. I'll make this full screen.
Bevan, just a quick interruption. Ben Allen has asked a bit about differentiating between standard plus or premium subscriptions.
I've already answered that question because I can see the question and answers too. So just go back to the infrared satellite. So as you can see, it's really detailed and super useful for flying VFR. You can almost see the individual clouds, as you can see here around Perth. It's an animation of the last sort of 90 minutes. Yeah, we depict a flight plan on there and you can see locations and so on. So you've got an idea of what you're looking at. But it is super duper useful for VFR and IFR at that matter. And at the top right, there's a button there, again, looks like a radar, and you can change the depiction. So here, Carl, is where you get an idea of what the cloud heights will be. So the colder the clouds, the higher they are, and the higher the tops. So got a bunch of wispy stuff, which is probably quite low. And then the blue stuff is getting into the altos, and the blues and the reds are higher again. So stormy sort of clouds. So we would be on top of some of that wispy stuff, and that's about it in those diagrams, in those pictures. And then we've got things like a view from windy.com, which doesn't look like it came up for whatever reason. Maybe I broke it. Bureau Met charts working down there, SIG weather, low level GPWT. So this is, again, useful for those that are coming into flying, because this is where the data flows directly from the information that's depicted in these charts into your actual flight plan. So I'll bring up the flight plan here as well. And so, yeah, the winds from these grids are the ones that flow into the flight plan. So all we're doing is adjusting them for magnetic variation and doing a linear interpolation for height. So depending on the altitudes. And those numbers are, yeah, they match that. A couple of things to be aware of that we take into account: your departure time and then your en route times to work out what the winds are. So depending on your departure time will depend on which GPWT forecast we get the winds from, and then apply it to your flight plan. The winds itself go out somewhere like 24 to 36 hours. So we can put a departure time 36 hours ahead and we'll use the forecast winds at that point. Just be aware that they won't be as accurate as winds sort of thing, and they are revised every 6 hours, 4 times a day, 6 times 24, yes, something like that, I think. Or is it 3 times? Every 3 hours. I should know this. I should, but I can't remember exactly. Anyway, it was whatever the GPWTs are. Oh yeah, all the instructors on the call are just shaking their heads. It looks like every 3 hours. Oh dear, what a muppet. Anyway, so all the GPWTs, and we actually, as you could see, and this was feedback for some flying schools that were using our software, is to pick the flight plan on there. So you can see our flight plan there. So you have that reinforcing that this is how the system works. So you can actually see the magic happening. And one question we get asked a lot is, how do I enter my own wins? You say you've gone to Arkaroola and there's no internet access. How do I update my EFB? So in the bottom part of the nav log is a button that looks like a folder. So the first of the 5 buttons under the flight plan. If we tap on that, it puts the plan in edit mode, and you notice now we've got more green boxes in our flight plan. So we can now tap on these, the ones with the wins in them. Where are the wins ones? Everything's reversed right up there. Over here, wins, and we can actually type in our own wins and then save them. Tap the plan, take the plan out of edit mode, and away you go. And then there's a bunch of other forecast products. You can go nuts. Lots of information there. Moving right along, we've got text. That's where the documentation lives. Things like the AIP and so on live there. So you can see, I can choose the Australian AIP, save it all for offline use. For those that are learning to fly and need to actually find stuff in the AIP, this AvPlan will make it super easy. So if we got the whole AIP here, we can search it and find in all of it for information. So we can tap this magnifying glass icon at the top and then find information that might be in the document. So we'll tap search for the term VASI, and we'll search all the documents, and we can then find the ones that that term is mentioned in and open it up. If we want to open a document, just tap on it and it opens the document at that location. So there we go. There's a close button in the top right. Is there a possibility that they may allow you to use an EFB? I'm really not too sure. It's on my list of things to discuss with them of how this can be done. But yeah, we certainly want to be able to have the ability to. They should be there. If not, you haven't got if you don't see Australian AIP sub UrsaGen DapGen, then you may not have Australian data selected under settings and then user settings. Sounds like a support thing. Okay, so settings, user settings, and then scroll down and make sure you've got a show Australian data ticked. And if not, then contact support at avplanefb.com and we'll sort it out for you. So you'll notice that I've even got the search button active at this top level. So this will then search every document on your device for that particular term. Oh, not on your device, in your AvPlan. So I can search for VASI and it then finds it in, all sorts of places. Let's give an example. Somewhere weird. Here we go. CASR volume, blah, blah, blah. There we go. There's a term in there too, VASI. Okay. So where you're viewing the documents gives you that sets a scope for the search. So you can narrow it down just by, I want to look in the AOP. I want to look in the CAOs. We've got UrsaGen, DapGen. They're all full of UrsaGen, DapGen goodness. The visual flight guide lives here as well, which is the visual flight guide, it's actually in PDF format now, which is great. Another thing you'll see when I've got a document open is I've got a little option there that allows us to look at the table of contents, if there is one. So not all PDFs will have a table of contents, but if they do, this option comes alive and we can then quickly find what we want here. So in the searching through the table of contents. Okay. We can also set bookmarks and we can search. The search then when we've got a document open, searches that current document. So it's really, the search is really powerful. We've got the CAOs, CARs, CAAPs. These have been recently completely refreshed, so they're all up to date. And we've now got a proper process to keep them up to date. Thank you very much. We had one of our staff diligently working for days getting this right, and they've done a great job. So then, yeah, so you've got all the CAOs, CARs, CAAPs. Again, they're all searchable, so it's quickly in there. I see we've got a question about pilot operating handbooks. Yes, you can import your POH from a PDF. If you've got it in PDF format, get it from an email or iCloud files or Dropbox. You can import it into AvPlan and then it sits under POH. You can see there. And again, that becomes searchable as long as it's got actually text in it and not just images. So back to documents, CARs, CAAPs, they're all there, ACs, manual standards. Air services and CASA documents, that's for future use. And then I've got other areas selected, so New Zealand AIP, so on and so on. You can see an option there for Dropbox, allows you to link it to Dropbox and have any document in there. And you can actually get documents in Dropbox to link against airports as well, if you name the documents appropriately. The details are in the user manual. The user manual is accessible here under documentation, right down the bottom. So if you need to know anything, jump into the user manual. That gets updated continuously. It's a dynamic living document. You can save a copy in PDF form, but just be aware things will change. And lastly, this is also where you can find the legends for the charts. So tap on chart legends, you can see here. I'll look at WAC, for example. If we're not saved, it'll download it. And here we go, here's a legend, so you can see all the things like the chart tints and so on. Okay. Notepads where we can write notes. Anything we write here will synchronize across all your other devices in pretty much real time. So that if one EFB fails, you can pick up your backup one and it's most often got the last lot of notes that you had. And then settings. So this is where you can sort of change things, set up your aircraft, that kind of stuff. The most important one is really data downloads. That's where we download and save the data on your device for offline use. When you've saved the data for an area, it turns green. As you can see here, most of Australia is green. If it looks like the Northern Territory, then you haven't saved it and it probably won't be available when you go offline. To save a particular area, you just tap on it with our finger and tap download and away it goes. There we go, starts downloading the data. And I can cancel that if I wish. So every 3 months or so, the URSA and DAP get updated, and every 6 months you get new maps. Just before that happens, around a week or so, you'll get a notification on your device saying that there's new data to download, and the app will be prompting you to go in here and start downloading the updates for the areas that you've selected. So what happens there, it's in the bottom right, there'll be a red button that says update. You tap on that and it downloads all the data updates for until and saves them on your device. And then when the Thursday comes along, it then switches over to the current data set. Got a bunch of user settings in here. You can change all sorts of stuff. You know, put your flight plan in a full screen mode, so not at the side, but on its own tab. Some interesting things around syncing flight plans and aircraft profiles. That's so if you've got multiple devices. So we allow you, a single user, to have up to 3 devices at once. And with these options, it will sync your aircraft profiles and flight plan information between them. The syncing aircraft was a little bit problematic, but it's had a major renovation in the last sort of release. So it's it is much more reliable and so on. And to jump back to the start, the tabs, there's a planning tab. This is where all the pre-flight planning information is. It's structured in a way as a bit of a workflow from top to bottom. So you can imagine you start at the top, do the things that are required, and you end up down the bottom. And what I'm going to do now is just step through just creating a simple flight plan so you can get an idea of how that works. So I'll tap this stored plans button at the top left, and just to close the current active flight plan that I had in there. And then I get a list of saved flight plans. So soon you'll get the ability to sort and order and folderize this, but it's just been somewhat delayed by other important work, unfortunately. So to create a new flight plan, you can tap the big green new flight plan button. So by default, it uses the last aircraft that you used, or you can tap that aircraft symbol, the middle of the 5 buttons at the bottom, to change to a different aircraft. These days, one of the easiest ways to get a flight plan in there is just to use the quick edit box and just type where you want to go. So I want to go Lilydale to Albury, for example, and then tap return, and then it's created a flight plan from Lilydale to Albury. If we go to the map page, there it is. We can use our finger to drag and drop places into it. So we can go up to Mangalore, drag our line over, let go, up pops the nearest items. We find Mangalore. We can tap on Mangalore and then add it to our flight plan with that insert button up here. And again, if you want to go over Wangaratta, tap, hold, drag, you can tap on the airport and tap insert into flight plan. If you want to take it out again, just tap on it. We get waypoint details, we can go delete, and that'll delete Wangaratta out. Let's go over Benalla instead. Set. Okay. So that's a really quick and easy way. You'll notice in our flight plan, we've got these coloured dots. Again, they're from the weather, from the METAR. So we can see at Mangalore, Benalla and Albury. It's a lovely evening. If we want to find out about places in our flight plan as before, we can just tap on it with our finger, get the waypoint details for a location like Bangalore. We can see the weather, TAFs, NOTAMs, communications information, and the charts. Again, one new feature here is also the ability to add destination alternates for a particular stage. So for example, the weather's a bit iffy and we want Yarrawonga to be an alternate. We can then tap on Yarrawonga and add it as a destination alternate for the first stage. It then depicts the alternate legs in grey, and you can see the grey in our Navlog flight plan here as well. So once we're happy with our flight plan, it all looks pretty good. We can pop in altitudes, or we can see what happens when we use the optimize altitudes function. So we can just work from the top. So optimize altitude finds the fastest, or shows you the effect of flying at different levels. And we model climb, cruise, and descent. So you can see how much fuel, time, and cost will be, and choose the one that works for you. I've got IFR selected, so it's picked IFR cruising levels. Above that flight plan, if I select VFR and do that again, it will then show the optimize altitude function in the proper altitudes. So I can select 9,500, for example, and you'll notice now it's updated our Navlog. Had a quick question around activating an alternate. So when we're actually flying along, we want to go to our alternate. just tap on it with our finger and tap direct to, that direct to button. So that activates direct to any point in the flight plan. So that will take us direct to my present position to that location, so Yarrawonga. So, and you'll notice that our active leg now is direct to Yarrawonga. And I will go back into plan mode and that'll clear that out. Right. So similarly, if I want to go direct to Mangalore, I can tap on Mangalore and tap that direct to button that appears. And then I'm flying from present position where I am now, direct to Mangalore. And I'll pop it in plane mode just to cancel it. Once we get to Mangalore, it'll then auto sequence down the rest of our flight plan. Back to planning, so optimize altitude. We can then load the aircraft with fuel and people and fuel. So I'll put 200 pounds in there and I'll put 45 US gallons in, and then we've got our takeoff weight, landing weight, zero fuel weight here. Arms in there. And then we've got a fuel plan here on the right-hand side with climb, cruise, descents, alternates, you can see there. So yeah, back to planning. We can look and see if there's any restricted areas that are active, user waypoints, get a route briefing from an SPFIB, from NAPES, sorry. And then we can file an ICAO flight plan. AvPlan will remember all the details in here, and it pulls the other information it needs from the aircraft profile and the flight plan. And if you modify this form, it then saves that detail back into either the flight plan or the aircraft profile for reuse later. The flight plan form will highlight information that you may have missed, so that prompts you to not forget something. So you can see here, it all looks good. We've got call sign in here. I don't know why I'm using a US aircraft, but anyway, we'll see what happens, won't we? We've got our departure, POB, ETD. Oh, it's highlighted ETD. We've forgotten to put our departure time in, so we can tap on that with our finger and give it a time. And let's say we're going to leave tomorrow morning at 2300. Now, this is one of the few places in the app we allow you to change to local time, and we can see that's Friday. It's, well, whoops, Thursday at 2300. Oh no, that's the local time. 9 o'clock. We've got the route there, levels, en route time, endurance. We can actually update this. So if we, we've only got 40 gallons on board, we can tap on that and we'll update our endurance and so on. Special hand, all this information, anything that's in a flight plan form can be added. We can add delays at places. So for those doing IFR, we can say, well, we're going to do a delay at YMNG 0030, for example. And now it's got a delay here, and notice our Nav Log now has a delay in there as well. So you got 32 plus 30, so 32 minutes en route time plus the 30 minutes of delay there. And we've updated our flight time and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's very interactive. We've got our destination, we can see our alternate, we can see SAR time information down here, so we can put a SAR time in here. I might change it to local time so my brain doesn't completely explode, and say we'll set a SAR time for 12:30. There we go, for arrival at Albury. We'll set that no send flag there on the right. That's so that we've sent a test flight plan. It gets validated by NAPES, but doesn't go any further, and I'll tap submit and let's see what happens. I've stuffed up the avionics. Oh, okay. say? In AvCom. And we'll submit again. So while we do that, we got a question around Android. So they have 10 out of 30. There we go. There's our flight plan all done. We do have features. Yes, they pay the same cost. Most of the features in the standard stuff is there these days. Android can file a flight plan. It doesn't yet have weight and balance. It does have aircraft profiles, and I think it has all the advanced weather overlays these days, but I'll have to check. Yes, it will eventually have most of the functions. Some of the functions don't ever make sense, like airdrop and whatever. So it will have that. We have 2 developers working on it full time. So, and the timeline is, yes, what you see here is 9 years of development. So Android hasn't had 9 years development. And plus we find it is a lot harder to support with multiple different device types, different operating systems. It's frustrating and slow and expensive. It costs the same because it costs us probably 3 times as much per user to create and support as iOS. So that's just the commercial reality of it. So yeah, it's I think Android AvPlan EFB for Android's always file flight plans and so on. So, but weight and balance isn't there. It has all the aircraft profiles. That's all done. Some of it isn't exposed, but yeah, you'll see a lot of changes. Weight and balances and the aircraft database is being worked on at the moment. But it's definitely an active project. So that's how you file a flight plan. So once we've filed a SAR time, we'll actually put a calendar reminder in to remind us to cancel it about 10 minutes prior. And that calendar reminder will also include your the phone number to ring. We can actually delete and cancel your SAR time inside the app. So you notice there's an option there that says delete notes plan. So that can actually just delete the plan that we just filed. Lastly, there's also the option now, it's always been there, to print everything out. So you can print your flight plan, load sheet, briefing materials and all the plates and stuff in a concise, like a single PDF file. So we've recently in iOS, we've updated all the flight plan reports. So you can have the traditional one that we did, as you can see here, but you can also now change to different Nav Log formats as well. So this is also a premium feature. So different printout formats and so on. So we're working on at the moment a bunch of changes to enable multiple weight and balance profiles for an aircraft. So this is for some of our commercial customers. Our sort of commercial business has really taken off, pardon the pun, and yeah, we're super busy with that at the moment, which is great. And one day we might. So there are different Nav Log formats. If you go under planning and then view print flight plan reports, you can use the option at the top right there to change the different formats if you've a Pro, VFR Plus or IFR Premium subscriber. So they're available there. What else have we recently added? Flight plan reports. The aircraft syncing was a big change. And so on. Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. Our development team's expanded quite a bit. Got a good question around computers to our pre-plan at home on IMAX or the big screen. We have, at the moment, we have Command Flight Planner, which is a Windows product. It's coal powered. However, it gets the job done. We have so many commercial customers that use that. You can flight plan on a Windows computer and then send the flight planner electronically wirelessly into your EFB just by typing in send, and away it goes. That's a separate product, about $129, $89 a year kind of thing. We have some other plans as well, but yeah, it's too early to really tell. But yes, lots of stuff going on. What else are we working on? We've got a whole new digital mapping engine, which is in Android. So that's a feature that's Android only at the moment. So digital charts, digital depictions of VFR charts. I can't show you here because I can't mirror my Android device on the screen, but it's super nifty. But like everything, it's taking a while to then bring to iOS because we have to reinvent the way we do maps. Well, we have a ruler, so using a 2-finger tap on the map, so you can measure tracks and headings. And then that ruler will stay until we zoom the map. So we zoom the map and it disappears. We also have the ability to draw on the map. So map settings at the top right, you'll see the second option under map options saying annotate map, and that allows us to actually draw on the map and yeah, like you would draw on a paper chart. We have a question around digital checklists, definitely in the plan. It's just behind a whole bunch of other work. Yes, we have a list that's got 1,000 different items on. So some are easy, some are hard, some are bundled up with a bunch of other work that has to happen before it. But yeah, we wish we could get everything done, to be honest. But it's a good problem to have. So I'm really now feeding off any questions. So if you've got any questions, feel free to type them in, and I'll do my best to answer. So option keep your flight track shown other than no. Well, yes and no. Well, no at the moment, but soon yes. As I said, some things we do get tied up in other work. So in our last release, we've actually split the track log from the flight plan. So at the moment, the flight plan and the way it's stored also stores the track log, the little green line that the plane leaves behind you. And that was one-to-one mapping, so a flight plan had a track log and so on. If you flew without a flight plan, it wouldn't save a track log. However, that's changed. So the app actually is now saving a track log all the time, and it's if you're got a flight plan active or not. We haven't exposed that to the user yet, but we've also greatly improved the way the app tracks off blocks, wheels on, wheels off time circuits, landings, what runway we're collecting, and we've been collecting this data for a month or so since 7.10 was released, and a update very soon will then expose that you can actually view your track log separately and so on. So yeah, that's coming soon. Got a question around flight timers. So we have a countdown timer on the terminal page. This is more for approach, as you can see up here on the top, and now counting. And our watch app has timers that count up as well. We don't have good countdown timers, I understood, and no alarms around fuel and that kind of stuff. That's planned. It's just, yeah, again, not yet done. Question around Flight Sim 2020. Yes, it's known to work. There are two mechanisms. One is FSUIPC and the instructions. The old instructions are on the website. We haven't looked at Flight Sim 2020 yet. We've just got so much other stuff on, and it's not really core to what we do. Other people say it works, and other people say FSUIPC itself has issues with Flight Sim 2020. There's also another option, which is XMASPY, something like that. There's a blog post on our website about that. It is a separate product from another company. It connects lots of different EFBs to Flight Sim and is known to work and supported and so on. So I recommend going down that path. It's like 10, 15 euros or something like that, but just saves the pain of trying to set it up. So one day I'll be able to get to doing that. So a question around subscriptions. So yes, an AvPlan EFB subscription allows you yourself to run AvPlan on up to 3 devices. And they can be a mixture of iPads, iPhones, and Android tablets. So we don't sort of discriminate there. But it isn't for you to share with your mates because then you find it stop working. Yes, so yeah, do we record your arrival time? We certainly do. So I'll give you an example. So in this flight plan, let's say we've departed here, we've departed at 10:09, so 8:09, and then it records our actual arrival times as we pass by each waypoint. I've obviously skipped forward a few, and then our planned ETAs are updated down here. It's then saved with our nav log, and when we print post-flight, we'll get a lovely PDF with all our ETAs and all that sort of stuff. But that's a great question. Barely scratch the surface here. If the where to get help is, there's a user manual, which is either in the app or on our website. All links to the same place. It's searchable. It's getting updated all the time, and with feedback stuff that we get from questions like you. We have support, so email support and phone support. You can ring us up. The phone numbers are on our website. And lastly, there's an in-app chat function. You see the little life belt that you see on most pages. You can tap on that and you can actually chat with support, which is one of our support staff. One of them, or a couple of them, may look familiar to you. And we'll either get back to you straight away or, when we can. Excuse me, depending on workload and so on. It isn't 24/7. We're pretty much staffed during office hours, but if we see something urgent coming through, we usually can deal with it no matter what. We do our best. We stand by our product, and anyone who deals with us realizes our support is absolutely fantastic. So, and that's a testament to the team that we have. They're all absolutely fantastic people, and they work super hard. A question around the Apple Watch. At the moment, it does a few things around nearby weather is probably the most useful. So on the last sort of page in the app, it gives you sort of the nearby airports, and you can see the weather and stuff. It just has little coloured dots, and you can tap on it and see the actual thing. Oh, and there's a question around the heads-up display. So I haven't shown you sort of active flight parameters, so we can tap the map settings thing and then turn on the HUD, which is down here in route options right here. And that shows us information about the active leg in our flight plan. So I'll make it leg active. When things change, we flash it. So you can see we've, recently the active legs changed to Benalla. We've got our current altitude and lower safe from our flight plan. We've got the tracks and headings, TASs and ground speeds and things, distances, ETAs, area frequencies, current and next, current QNH, and so on. And probably the most useful feature is if you don't like something that's in there, there's a bunch of other options, which you can then show on the map, in the HUD. So we can see with the current surface wind, for example, and have that up there, and we just pick that from the nearest METAR as we fly along, for example. Current QNH, current area frequency, 1357, and then when we're moving, we'll show the next one as well, depending on where we are. So you can see those options. Lots of different things, best place to head to the manual. The other thing to look at is we've got a bunch of YouTube videos where you can hear Carisha and I talk about different bits of the product. We have a mailing list that you can get on. That you have a tip every week. You'll learn something new, because there's a lot of stuff that's in there that even I'm starting to forget it. So tomorrow, iOS 14 will be released. If you're brave, go and install it. If you have more than one EFB, install it on one. But I'd leave it if you've only got one thing, leave it a week or two, and we'll see what happens. Things get a bit gnarly with iOS updates, and we can never test things to the degree that we need to in the time that we have. Yes, we have pre-release versions and so on, but like the last beta or the last sort of final edition only came out today and it gets released tomorrow. So as much as we'd like to say it's 100%, that's never entirely possible. And everyone's use case is slightly different. We have tens of thousands of pilots that use this every month. So yeah, they all do their own things in their own way. So always be prudent with the major iOS updates. And that's the same with Android as well. So, though with an Android device, it tends to be the operating system it's born with when you buy it from the shop is the one that it dies with. Hence the reason we get people ringing up wanting us to support an OS that was released in 2014. In terms of iOS versions, we support iOS 11 and higher, which is essentially every 64-bit device, so any device that's made after 2015 or so. Anything older will still work. It will just download a earlier release, but you'll still get maps and charts and updates for a number of years yet. If you're thinking of upgrading a device, I certainly recommend it, because the difference between one that's sort of 5 years old and today would be like light years. It'll be blindingly fast and dynamic, better battery life, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, thoroughly recommend it if you can. And then just relegate the older device to be the backup that sits in the flight bag ready to go, charged up and so on. So any other questions? I haven't seen any come through. You've been a great audience, not many interruptions, which have been good. And yeah, look, thank you very much for your support. I've got a long history with Lilydale Airport. So I've known Roger and Nerily for many years. They flew my wedding car, which was FCT, a Bonanza, on my wedding day on 2005. And yeah, as Carl said, I've flown PMP, which is now based at Lilydale. I flew that with my now wife to New Zealand and back just after we met. So she said that she's a Kiwi and, she liked the idea of flying in little planes. So I thought I'd put that to the test. So I flew to New Zealand and back, which was awesome. And I can't wait to do it again. Now the kids are older and they can swim. I reckon we do it again, because yeah, it's awesome fun. Yeah. So yeah, thanks very much. And why don't we end the recording? And
well, thank you very much, Bevan, for your time this evening. The original plan was at 8 o'clock and we've gone a bit over. That's not a bad thing. So yeah, we're very, very grateful for you spending the time when we're all in these bizarre circumstances, and enormously grateful for the insight that you've given us with the new things that are coming with AvPlan. It's great. I know I'm going to at least give one of my machines a kick in the pants tomorrow and see how it goes with iOS 14. And I'll probably be on the phone. Might be a fun.
Look, so far it's working pretty well, but I've had an issue with the phone, but then I've realised that it's actually there in iOS 13. So
we're all sitting on the ground mostly at the moment here in Melbourne anyway. Not really able to do very much. So testing will be limited. We'll do our best that we can. So thank you, Bevan, on behalf of everyone who's had a chance to ask you questions and kind of get a bit more of a trip through this. And I'm not sure what our next seminar is. I think it's going to be something about flying the big jets. One of the ex-Lilydale pilots is going to be having a bit of a chat to us probably next Wednesday. I'll let you guys know the details of that in our newsletter on probably Monday next week, maybe Tuesday, and through our Facebook page as well. Additionally, the recording of this session will be up on YouTube probably in the next half to 45 minutes, depending on how long it takes to upload to YouTube. And I'll post the link for that on our Facebook page, and it will also go out on the newsletter early next week. So thank you very much, Bevan. We're enormously grateful for your time. And I look forward to seeing you in the flesh at some point in the not too distant future.
Oh, yes, as soon as we're allowed out of our little bubbles.
As soon as we're allowed out.
No, thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, and safe flying when we can all get out and do it again.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's been great having you all, and we'll see you as soon as we possibly can.
Brilliant. Good evening. Good night. It's good night from him, and it's good